So today I'm excited. We have a presentation by Bronco Machinery, and Chuck asked Bill to present for us, and I think he has some great things to go over for us.
So I was going to go over just some of the regulations, Part 107, mainly the RID. I'm sure this group has experience with UAVs. I'm assuming everybody got their Part 107 while flying. I did add in, some of the requirements, because as I'm out talking to people, I'm noticing that there are still a few people that are flying without their certificate and not following the 107 requirements. And just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. If you are new to UAV, here are some of the 107 requirements that are absolutely required, or there could be fines involved that are pretty substantial. Again, this group is probably well versed in this, so I won't spend too much time on this. Just just show each screen briefly. If anybody is new to this, please let me know. We can go through any one of these, in a little bit more detail or at length. And again, this is for drones that are less than 55 pounds, so covers the majority of what's being flown today, excuse me, commercially. And another area that I'm seeing too is registration. Not everybody is getting those drones registered. They're not putting the registration number on, or tail number on their drones. Just make sure you're doing that. The last that I had heard, if you have a drone that's operating for commercial use and you don't have a tail number on that, you could be fined $25,000. I'm not sure if that has changed at all since I had last read that, but just make sure you get that tail number on that UAV, somewhere on that UAV. That is an absolute requirement. Another one that's come, 2023 rules is make sure you've got that registration with you while you're operating that drone. Just when you register your drone, you'll get a little sheet of paper with the registration information. Just fold that up, put it in the drone box. Make sure you have that on you at all times when operating, and also your remote pilot certificate. Make sure you've got that on your person while operating your drone. And then as far as pilot certification, again, some of the requirements here. And again, if there's anybody new to UAV, please let me know. We can spend more time on this. If you know of anybody who is going to test for their certification, I did put in down towards the bottom, it's the Dauntless Ground School. That's the site that I use to study for the initial test, and then the reoccurring tests every 2 years. Highly recommended. It's $55 one-time fee. It's continually updated. They just updated for the 2023 rules on the remote ID and the night flying and whatnot. There's several different ways to study. I cannot recommend that site enough. And I just remember downloading all the free material that I could read to take the test, and I looked at the stack and figured it'd take me about 6 months to read through everything. Found this site by chance, and they get, again, several different ways to study. You can do the actual test. You can do like flashcards. I sat over a weekend, studied that maybe 16 hours, and went and tested the following week and passed with no problem. So again, highly recommended for anybody who is planning to take the test or knows somebody who is going to take the test and needs study material. And one of the questions I get as well, as far as the 107, as far as maintenance on the, any type of maintenance protocols. So FAA doesn't require anything offhand. They will say if the manufacturer has protocols to follow those. And that could mean just firmware updates. I know DJI, some of the different drones, the enterprise drones, they've got, recommended hours or set times that you would send the drone back. So just make sure you're following all manufacturer maintenance protocols. And then if they don't have, if the manufacturer does not have a protocol, it is recommended to establish your own. And you can't stress enough documentation just in case something happens with your UAV, that you've got everything documented when you're dealing with if you have to deal with the FAA. Just make sure you are following some type of maintenance protocol, documenting everything, documenting hours, and maintaining those birds, keeping those up to standards. And here's some of the other requirements. I actually had somebody that had an accident with one of their UAVs and did not realize that they would have to report that. It was over $500. Again, anybody new to this, if you want to go through any of this in more detail, let me know. I feel I'm presenting to an experienced audience here. Obviously got the airspace authorizations. I actually came across someone that was operating next to an airport, had no idea about airspace, what was required, the use of the LAMP system, and they're actually operating in a grid with 0 altitude over a couple of weeks, which I was shocked. It was a towered airport, and nothing happened. And that was also a person that did not have a tail number or a certificate to fly. So I'm just, again, making people aware of these requirements that are not currently aware. All right, so big question we're getting now is on the remote identification. And this is going to come into play come September this year, mid-September. Last year, all the drone manufacturers had to start incorporating the remote identification, and basically it's just it's a digital license plate. So anytime you get that drone in the air, it's going to, or the requirement is now that it has to send out the drone ID, drone location, altitude, the control station location, elevation, and time marks. That's what needs to be broadcasted from your UAV from start to finish on flights. And again, that's coming in the mid part of September. There's 3 ways to meet the remote identification requirement. And that is if you have a drone that is active in now. I know DJI has a number of drones that are they come standard with the remote ID. If you do not have a drone that meets that requirement, you can get a remote ID broadcast module. And I've got a couple examples on the next slide that you can look at to attach to your UAVs. They're fairly small, fairly inexpensive, and they meet all the requirements for remote identification. I don't know if Tom's on here or not, but we were going back and forth on the Phantom 4 RTK. Initially, it looked like it was because of end of life. They weren't getting a firmware update for RID, but they do have that now. So anybody operating those are good to go moving forward. And I'll also have on the next slide a link where you can actually go look up your UAV to see if it is compliant, or if you will have to get a remote ID module for that unit. Third way to operate without the remote identification is in these areas called FRIAs. And those are more than likely going to be around universities, RC parks, things like that. But if you're operating within those areas, you do not have to have remote ID. Again, all line of sight, and probably not going to cover your job sites or your project sites. Again, September 16th, 2023 is the date that every UAV has to have the remote ID active on their UAV. All right, here are some of the modules that I made mention of. We've got this drone tag beacon, and I put a little link for each one. And then the other one is the ping RID. Both very small and relatively inexpensive. Should be able to attach to most any UAV. And it's I know the ping RID reading on that, it's basically you attach it, turn it on, and it's operational. The drone tag, there is an app that you can use to or look like there's an app that you can use to actually set that up, but fairly straightforward. And then if you want to look to see if your UAV is currently compliant, there's a list there, or excuse me, a link there. You can go on and type in your UAV model, and it'll show if it's enabled or not. Okay, another one we get asked on is operations over people. This one is still pretty mired in the mud, even in 2023. So the way that the FAA is approaching that now, they've loosened up a little bit, and they've before where it was you can only fly over these sparsely populated areas. They've come up with these different categories based on the level of risk for the UAV itself. Category 1 is for the extremely small UAVs, again, anything that's total weight, that includes all attachments, batteries, and whatnot. That is under the that 0.55 of a pound. If it doesn't have any exposed rotating parts, maybe you have the cage over the props, you can fly over people. And if you have remote ID, you can. There's really no situation where you couldn't fly over people. Category 2, that's when you're starting to get into bigger drones. And it's really not identified as of yet what these categories are as far as in relation to the different UAV models. So again, it's undefined. It's kind of left up to the pilot to kind of wade their way through these or through this regulation here. But again, no exposed rotating parts. If you're planning on flying over people, does not have any safety defects. And really the killer here is the means of compliance and declaration of compliance. So basically, if the manufacturer of that UAV has not gone to the FAA and said, okay, here's this model of UAV, and we feel it's safe to fly over people because of these reasons. And if the FAA says, okay, well, that looks fine, they look at that further and they come out with this compliance, this declaration of compliance. If your manufacturer has not done that, kind of leaves you out, flying over people for the most part. So again, check to see what model you're buying, see if it has the compliance to fly over people, and that may oops, sorry about that. That may drive you to a different model that does have that compliance. And again, with the Category 2 aircraft, if it does have remote ID, you can fly sustained, continual flight over open air assemblies, which is, weddings, concerts, anywhere where there's, a larger group of people. But last reading, there are no Category 2 aircraft as of this time. Category 3, bigger. Again, they don't really give you weights or models. It's basically just this kinetic energy on impact, which would be nice if that was defined somehow. But again, if you want to fly over people, again, no exposed rotating parts, no safety defects. This also falls under that means of compliance, declaration of compliance. So again, manufacturer has approached FAA, says it's safe to do so. If FAA decides, then it's classified as that. If it is accepted, then you've got, operations within or over closed restricted areas that's now open. And then you can have the, flight over vehicles as well. The only bird that or UAV that I'm aware of that has that now is the 𝐀𝐫𝐈𝐂. That's the only one that's coming up as having that the compliance to fly over people and over vehicles. And then Category 4, it's basically for the delivery drones, the Amazons. So really don't get too much into that. I don't think any operator that we deal with will be handling any type of aircraft or UAVs in that category. It's basically just that Category 1 through 3. And again, you're walking a fine line if you're flying anything over that, that 0.55 of a pound, around people at this point. So it's going to be left up to the pilot to really, make sure that they try and meet the regulations for operations over people at this time. Then operations over moving vehicles. Again, we're going back to those same categories 1, 2, and 3. And if they meet the requirements, then there's you have access. Again, as long as it's not sustained flight. And again, sustained flight is it's basically over, in this case, the vehicle for any length of time. It does not include transition where you're going from point A to point B. So if you're to cross a freeway, for instance, but if you were to fly continually over that freeway, then that's sustained flight. Night operations have eased up quite a bit. You no longer have to have a waiver for that, as long as you meet the 2 conditions listed here. So as of April 6, 2021, testing now includes night operations. And so you will have to, if you haven't tested after that date, then you will need to test again for the night operations. And then you need to make sure that your aircraft has the anti-collision lighting. That's visible for the 3 miles. And as far as the other questions we get to beyond line of sight, that's still a waiver, and they're not issued that often. I don't know if anybody would have those requirements at this time, but so any questions on what was covered, anything you want to go in more in depth, just let me know.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Bill. That's great. I definitely learned some things. I do have a question. So I have a DJI Phantom 4 Pro. So
Correct.
will one of those RFIDs work with that one across, that model, or does it have to be the RTK? I know you mentioned it was um, compliant for the RTK, but what about some of the older Phantom 4 Pros?
Yeah, the modules will work with any of the UAVs. I've seen it. Yeah. So you just get one of those, attach it, turn that thing on, and you're good to go. You're compliant.
And in terms of attaching it, is there a mount that comes with it, or do you have to have your own mount?
Double-sided tape.
Oh, that's it? Really?
That's it. Yep. And then once you do, either get a module, or if you get, get a UAV that does have the RID, you have to go back into where you registered the UAV and then include that information. There's serial numbers that you'll have to include for the RID. So just make sure that you do that as well.
So with double-sided, so it's no chance of that thing coming off with just double-sided tape, or
Hopefully not. I haven't run any yet. Haven't had any field tests with any of the modules just yet. I know as far as Brandco, we do have some some older model UAVs that will still utilize. So I will have some field tests here shortly with one of these 2 units or both, these different modules. So I can always report back, but just get a good double-sided tape, outdoor double-sided tape, and you should be fine.
Okay. So Bill, I guess the access to these, I'm glad to see that you have the links on here, because for the last couple of months we've been speaking about where do you get these things at, and do you have those available with Brandco, or is it just on the
site? Yeah, these are you'll buy them directly from Drone Tag. They're third party. Yeah, we won't we don't resell the modules.
Okay.
Yeah. And then again, up top you've got the that link to see if what models are RID compliant. You can also look to see what models are compliant for flying over people. And again, when I looked last, it was just the EVs that currently have that.
Great. One last question. When I first tested, I know I went to Falcon Field to take my test. Now I believe it's all online now. Is that a fact, or do you still have to go to a testing location?
Yeah, the reoccurring test is you don't have to go to a specific location, but if you're testing first time, you'll have to go to a testing site.
Thank you. Okay, I'll open it up for. Okay, if anyone doesn't have a question, I'd like to thank Bill. I thought there's some good information, especially on the remote ID and some of the new regulations. Things to be changing. Oh, just one other question. So I heard about a proposed bill for Arizona to limit where you could fly. Have you heard anything about that?
I have not. Okay. Yeah, I've heard of some other, bills, other states and whatnot, but yeah, I haven't heard of anything in Arizona.
Okay. Just checking. So thank you so much for presenting to us. On behalf of Chuck, I just want to just say, hey, it's good to have presentations like this, and this is very informational, and we hope to have you again sometime.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right.